My name is Aniekan Udofia, and I'm a painter and illustrator here in Washington, D.C. Art Wino, and I think I've known them for a long time, and so gradually I've worked with them in the past before. So they were, I think each year they pick a different artist for the project. So that year, last year they picked me amongst other artists to be a part of it.
How many murals did you do in Richmond?
I did 2. The Richmond mural project, I had 2 walls. So one was by the Hippodrome, which is sort of like, say, the Lincoln Theater here in DC. So it was just recently renovated. So what happened was I wanted to create a concept that was close to the story behind the Hippodrome. So I had the idea was these 2 women conjuring, and that was the title of the mural, The Conjuring. So it's like they're conjuring these music instruments, like jazz music instruments, because a lot of people have performed at a lot of famous people have performed at the Hippodrome in the past, like a lot of big jazz musicians. So I wanted to capture that with that concept of them conjuring up the place back into life. So using a lot of different color schemes, and that whole concept of them, like something whimsical that kind of tells the story. So that's what that was for that mural. The other mural, which is on, I think, 2nd and Marshall, is Bojangles, Bill Robinson. He's a famous character that has a history in that neighborhood. So it was actually what was recommended also by the wall owner. So that being the case, you know, it was really exciting because I like doing portraits. The thing that I like most about portraits is capturing an expression, and especially when you're doing a mural, it's challenging to go from like a 4x6 to like 40 feet by 60 feet, you know, so that, yeah, and it's just like capturing that expression and seeing the reaction later. The challenge of making sure that those people look like the people when it's after it's painted, you know, the photorealism, which I'm still working on at this point because I just started using aerosol. So it's still a new medium to me, but the more and more I keep using it, the more comfortable I'm getting. So first I get the idea, which is the process, the concept of what was going to be on the wall. So for instance, the Bojangles one or the Conjuring one, I'll sketch up a draft, and from that draft I'll decide the colors and everything, and it's usually small, like a sketchbook size. So once I do that, then the next step is to shrink it down and scan it and put it on a disc. So that's the first process of, you know, I sketch it, and then there's the projection, and then I sketch on the wall, and then fill it in with the color. As far as the rest of it goes, it depends on the complexity or the weather or other issues. It could be done in a day, it could be done in a week, it could be done in a month. Those are not estimated unless there's an ultimatum, like say if they like, we need this done tomorrow, or we need this done by this day, then the challenge comes in and you actually have to finish within the confines of that deadline, which is still not a problem at all. But for me, the beginning process, setting up and projecting and sketching is the hardest part for me. But once that is done, then it could take, like, the 2 murals were done within a 3-day span. So the Bojangles, the only thing was the projection. You know, like, I couldn't get a good projector at first, and you know, there was a little problems because that's all I needed was his face to add into it. But once that was done, I think that was like a day's worth of work, and I think it was about 60 feet long, so, and about 12 feet high. So it was just, once the right preparation is there, once I'm done with the prepping, like, the work is usually done really fast. In Richmond, it's not something new to them, and that's what was really cool about it. Like, when they see you working on a mural, like, oh, what's that gonna be, you know? As against here, when you working on a mural, people go, did you get permission? Like, they look at it like, I like the wall when it was blank. Why is he putting that up there? You know what I mean? So in Richmond, it was very open. People were excited. There were people went around during the process, and they were like, oh, we just came from that other one. We heard there's another one here. And yeah, so that's the difference that I saw there. And it was really cool. I wish, I would say Richmond is one of my favorites. I mean, I live here in DC, so, like, the thing about DC is, like, it's gradually picking up, and that gradually is very slow. People are not really into it right now, but in the future I hope to travel more into other cities. Like, I think this year I'm gonna be in New Orleans for a mural project, so that's exciting. My friends, you know, and other artists who I've grown up around, I'm not just an artist, but I'm also an art fan. So I have tons of art books and art documentaries, and I'm always interested in seeing the process of other artists. So that's my schooling. That's, you know, if I see someone working on, you know, any graffiti piece or street art piece or mural, I like to go there and sit there for hours watching it. I mean, it might be boring to some other people, but that's been my schooling. I like playing around with different mediums and seeing how they work and how I can use them, you know. So ever since I was a kid, you know, I always made friends with the other kid who can draw, you know. We ran around drawing all the time, you know. So that's been my schooling, and even till this day, it's the same thing. You know, any artist that I pick interest in, that's why I like meeting artists, but more importantly, the process. Like, I like hearing or seeing, like, what goes into them creating something. Last year I did a show called It Was Written, and it was based off hip-hop lyrics, and I turned them into visuals, and that was at the Fridge Gallery. I've done shows at the Fridge Gallery. There's a lot of works, like on U Street there's 15th and U, it's George Washington, and then there's Ben's Chili Bowl, and then further up on 7th and S there's Marvin Gaye, and then further up on Florida Avenue there's the Reloaded series mural also. So that's just on one strip. So I think that's 4 on one strip. And then there's Duke Ellington, Frederick Douglass, but all those other murals are spread across the city. So I think I've done a total of, I want to say 13 outdoor murals in the city. And there's extra, I think, maybe 10 indoor